Hi everybody. I want to apologize in advance if the video quality is a little bit rickety here, but I'm going to try and do this all with my phone in my hand. What I want to talk about is a issue that I came up against with syncing the clock between two synthesizers, and the problem that I came up against and the solution that I finally found for it. Now, what I'm talking about is these two guys in particular. This is the Dave Smith Prophet 12, and this is the Moog Sub 37. Here's the deal. I want to be able to sync the clock on the Moog and the clock on the Dave Smith together, because when you're using step sequencer and arpeggiator and things like that, even when you're using them very subtly, a lot of times it's nice to have them in sync together. They sound tighter, and you know, sometimes you don't want that. It can be more musical if you don't do that, but you want the ability to quickly and easily do that. Now, either one of these guys can act as a master or a slave. As you'll notice on the Prophet here, you actually have a tempo that is in BPM, which is important. And you can adjust the BPM using a knob, or the presets that you use here or that you create can have a BPM set with them. That's fine. The Moog, on the other hand, it has a rate knob, but it's not, it's close, but it's not really exact. In fact, there's nothing in the firmware. You can't really see the LCD. It's a little washed out here. But there's nothing in the firmware that lets you see what the actual BPM is. I think that would be nice if they would add that. But either way, you have to dial it in, and it's not a detented dial or anything, so you gotta kind of mess with it. So it's really tough to get it really accurate. However, you can sync to a slave. You can either do a tap tempo, or you can use this button to sync to the slave clock as a slave to another clock very, very easily. So if I'm playing and I've got this patch, it's no particularly good patch, but maybe you can hear this. Suppose I just, in fact, let me do this real quick. I'm going to press the hold button, so when I play this, whatever I play is just going to stay. So this little arpeggiator is happening at 120 BPM. If I play the same thing over here at whatever I rate this is, it's not, okay? The problem is, and let me stop this for a second. The problem is I looked for ways to slave this, for this to be the master and this to be the slave. The problem is, and it's a limitation I think in the firmware, or maybe I just haven't figured out how to do it yet, which makes me feel a little stupid if there is a way to do it, but I can't filter out other MIDI messages out of here. In other words, what happens is if I use this as the slave to this for clock, and I play a note on this, it also plays this. It's sending a node on message to the Moog, and I don't want to do that. I want them to be completely independent synthesizers, but I just want them to be synced together by the clock. I want them to use the same clock tempo, and and other things as well. The digital delay, any device that accepts external clock, and even even Pro Tools and whatever else. You'd like to have a clock where you can just sync everything together and have it just be the clock and nothing else. Also, I haven't found anything in the Moog firmware that allows me to filter MIDI messages. There's some MIDI configuration capability, but I can't say ignore everything but clock. So it's going to accept whatever the other device is sending. And that was a problem. I spent a lot of time looking at apps. I use an iPad a lot, and I spend a lot of time looking at apps. And there's some apps out there that do this, but they're really crappy. They're not really well done, and they've got You know, they want you to type in the tempo into a 10-point font size field, and they're bloated with features. I just want a clock. So I found something, and I'm going to show it to you right here. Let me okay. This is a little German company called E-RM. It's actually E-RM.de, and they make this little MIDI clock, and it's all it is. It's a freaking clock, and you can set the. Let me change hands here. It's weird doing it looking through the viewfinder here. You can change the tempo to whatever you want. It's just a knob. It's not fancy, and you've got a start. You've got a start-stop. It'll start sending clock, and you've got kind of a reset. It'll reset the position pointer. Also, you can do things if you double tap the knob here. Make a liar out of me. And you see the LED, the top LED. That means when I turn this knob, it's going to send the tempo change in real time, so I could speed up and slow down. Right? If I don't have that, then it will I can select the tempo that I want while I'm doing something else, like playing. I can dial in the next tempo that I want, and then when I start the next tempo, it will change the tempo. So it's pretty handy. It has two different ways to do it, and it's just a MIDI cable, regular standard 5-pin cable. It's USB powered. Right now, I have it plugged into like a little phone charger, wall wart kind of thing. But it'll take power from your computer. It's 5 volts at just a few milliamps. It's really low powered. But what it does is exactly what I want it to do. I have only one MIDI cable right now, and I've got it going into the Moog here. But there's another MIDI output on the back, and you can, which I will end up doing when I find a spare MIDI cable, syncing this at the same time. So it'll send the same clock instruction out to whatever devices I have together. And if I use MIDI through or whatever, I can chain as many devices to this thing as I want to. But what I've got is a nice big LED display, and if you play live, it becomes very quickly apparent how hard it is to see stuff on a screen. On these little LCD screens in a dark room, and I'm in kind of a dark room now. This is my music studio at home, but it's still a dark room. And what I'd like to be able to see is what tempo I'm dealing with in big, bold red numbers in this case. So let me show you how this works here. I've got this set to 120 now, and this particular patch again is 120. So let's go back over here. I'm going to press the hold button again, so whatever I play will just continue to play. Now remember, before this wasn't in sync, so if I hit the sync button here and then tap the start button here and play the same thing on this keyboard, see, it won't do it until I did something wrong here. I got to hit the Get the picture? Now this little device isn't cheap. If you go to their website, which is e-rm.de, they have a list of dealers. I only found one dealer in the U.S. that even had it in stock. You don't find these things on Sweetwater or anything like that. But it was called Noisebug in Pomona, California, and they sent this to me, and literally I got it like the next day. Really fast ship, or the day after, 2-day shipping. It was really quick. A little pricey, but it's handmade. You could tell by looking. This thing is solid. It's built like a tank. I understand that they're handmade, each one. They're very durable. And if you've got the investment in synths and stuff like that, and you want a really simple, easy to use clock, and I also understand that it's extremely accurate. So if you're using this, you could use this as a clock for recording and everything else, because it's extremely accurate, so they say. And also, these synths have a tendency to drift sometimes, so you can quickly reset the tempo just by re-hitting it, and it'll just resync everything together. So if you find yourself drifting while you're performing, if you find your tempo drifting a little bit between instruments, it's very easy to correct it. Which it's not so easy even if you have a successful sync between these two machines, you actually have to mess with it in more detail to get it to resync. So this is extremely handy. I highly recommend it. I'm surprised that there are not more of these out there. This is the only one I could find. But it's stupid simple. That's all you want. It works in a dark room. It's easy to use. It's got one big knob on it. And, and that's kind of what we're into here. The simplicity of knobology, and the knob has a function that you need it to do, and it doesn't mess around, and it doesn't make you jump through hoops to get it done. So e-rm.de, the E-RM Midiclock, I highly recommend it if you need something like this. Thanks for watching.